First and foremost, of course, I do want to acknowledge that we are presenting today from the traditional and unceded territories of the Fraser Salish people. And for those of you who are coming from different areas where you're either living or working, we just invite everyone to become informed about their local traditional territories and the people who reside there. So for those of you who are very new to us, we just like to start at the very beginning with a reminder of who SurreyCares is. Our agenda for today, I am hoping that Mike Bowes, our committee chair for grants, might be popping in to say hello. We will provide, as I said, an overview of SurreyCares and how our work is flowing out in terms of our new grant criteria. We'll share with you some timelines, some tips, and have lots of time for question and answer. And so I really just want to say thank you for being here so that we can chat with you about what we've observed. Most of you know Lynn Pearson, who was on the call to welcome you this evening. And Lynn is our program administrator. So she is generally the first person who looks at your applications as they come in or answers any technical questions. So thank you to Lynn for this long day that we've had today. So some of the things that are happening with SurreyCares are that we've just come out of a strategic refresh. And so one of the things that we really wanted to talk about that's going to be new for you this year is that we're really focusing on how our values play out in terms of our grant making. And so you'll see there a list of our values. And in particular, on the application this year, you will be asked a new question that speaks to how diversity, equity, and inclusion show up in your application. So that will be new to those of you who have written the application before. Any of you who wrote applications for the Emergency Community Support Fund or are writing for the CHCI will also recognize those questions. And so we're really doing our best to ensure that we're thinking about that in our community. Collaboration has always been a value in the application process. So we really encourage you to be transparent about where you're collaborating and how you're collaborating. As some of you will know, our grants are always oversubscribed. And so we're really looking for organizations to be showing that they're working together and not reinventing the wheel. So just, you know, one quick pointer there. And of course we are, I like this little diagram here. I don't know if I can make it a bit bigger. Trying to think about equity versus equality. And I know for many that that's a new set of terminology. And we're hoping that that will begin to show up more in the applications that we're funding in the community. And how we can really bring in groups and individuals who haven't had the same opportunities within their organizations or our life here in Surrey, and how we can give them that extra boost through these projects and initiatives. So some of the considerations that we've discussed as we've looked at applications coming in is thinking about the adjudicators. And so for those of you who are not familiar with our process, SurreyCares has a team of adjudicators who review the applications that come in. We do have, for the community grants, in excess of 40 applications that are reviewed by that team. The adjudicators are volunteers. They're people in the community who have a good background in Surrey and the organizations and the needs. And so we're really grateful for the time that they donate to go through your applications. And so certainly anything that you can do to help the adjudicators understand what it is that you're trying to do, the importance of the work, and make it really clear is greatly appreciated. Our adjudicators not only come from Surrey, but they may bring a specific area of expertise. So really trying to think about it from their view. If they don't know the work that you're doing, you know, making it very clear what it is that you're all about can be really helpful, because they do get a lot of applications to go through, and the more clear you are, the more helpful. And I can send you a copy of these slides if that would be helpful. I see some of you scribbling madly, so we're happy to share.
Thank you. That would be me.
Okay. So as I said, you know, we do want to make sure that the values are shining through in terms of your application. And so the phrase that we use is nothing about us without us. And so, you know, really thinking about the individuals that you're seeking to serve and how their voices have been heard in the planning of this project that you're proposing. And that's really important. So we'd really like to see that coming through loud and clear in that question that we're asking you. As well, if you're serving underserved populations in the community, make that clear. If you think you're doing something unique that no one else is doing, please identify that. Our adjudicators, because we don't have the dollars to fund everyone, we'll be looking for what meets the needs of the community best. Are they seeing innovative applications that they've never seen before? Are they seeing applications that are serving populations that we've not seen applications from? And of course, parts of the community that we might not have been serving. So one of the things that we'll talk about is planning to be sustainable. Recently, our grants committee did a review of, I'm not sure how many years they went back, but they looked at the history of all of the organizations that we'd funded within the community grant stream. And for the most part, organizations maybe get funded once or twice, but it would be unusual for an organization to be getting funded every year, because as we've said, we're trying to support the community broadly. So, you know, really thinking about other sources of funding can be useful. If you've applied for the same project multiple years in a row, then you might want to be thinking about that, because that may be less successful if you're really coming back with the same initiative every year. One of the things that you can consider, if you haven't already heard about it, SurreyCares does have the capacity to create endowment funds for specific charities. We have about 20 of them at the moment. So if anyone's interested in that, please let me know. And we've got some information that we can share. But if you're looking for a way to become sustainable and know that you're going to get dollars every year, having a charity fund that's designated to your organization can give you the capacity for that kind of annual paycheck that doesn't go through an adjudication process. And some organizations have created, their board has made a motion to create those funds themselves. In other cases, it's been a donor that said, hey, I really support the work being done by a particular organization, and I'm going to seed the fund. And what that means is every year that organization receives a paycheck of some size. If it's a small endowment, maybe the first year it covers your postage. But for some of our larger endowed funds that are held for specific registered charities, like the Darts Hill Garden Park, which is our largest, they receive an annual check of $186,000 a year. So if you pool with us and then help to raise awareness in the community, those funds can grow through increased donations of people who say, hey, you know, the the Y is one of our funds, and you could say, well, gee, I want to give $50. I'm going to give it to the Y fund, and that becomes part of that pool. Our investment committee manages those investments, and we've got a pretty strong rate of return. So the fund, even if no donations come in, continues to grow every year. And for those of you who are brand new to us, if you're not on our mailing list already, you can sign up on our website for the newsletter so that you won't miss any alerts about things that are going on. And we do have a new philanthropic directory that there's a link to on our website. So that might be a way that you can increase awareness of your work with other donors beyond SurreyCares. So if you have any difficulty finding that, it's pretty easy. You just go in and put in your information, and it goes directly up to the directory. All right, so a couple of things that I hope are going to excite you. One of the things that will be new this year is that as of about an hour ago, the board has approved a change in our granting criteria, and we will be able to include project staffing in your applications this year. Now, our grants through the community fund are a max of $5,000, so it's not a lot of money, but we recognize that with the work that many of you are doing, you do have to incur staff costs to deliver your programs. So we will now be able to consider that, and the adjudication committee will just take that into account. It is meant to be staffing for projects, not fundraising or overall administration, but the example being given that during COVID, a lot of your organizations are doing mental health related projects, and that's not stuff that's done by volunteers. That requires skilled staff in order to do the work. So we're really pleased to be able to add that this year, and we hope that will bring you a little bit of relief. I'm not sure if any of you online today are don't have your own registered charity status. In the event that you're not a registered charity, you can still apply for a grant from SurreyCares. You would be required to complete an intermediary agreement, which means that you're partnering with a charity who's working with you. The money goes to the charity for your project, and they oversee the work. So there is a way that you can do that. It does require that you have a relationship with a charity and that their cause is similar to the project that you're putting forward. So if you've got questions about that, you're welcome to reach out to us and we can get you a copy of the agreement. It's not something to leave toward the last minute, because often that requires a board motion to accept that kind of an arrangement. So, please look at that sooner than later if that applies to you. And in terms of COVID-19, I know that some of you have been communicating loud and clear that you're certainly still in need of more significant dollars beyond March 31st. We don't have anything at the moment that's on our radar other than the new Canada Healthy Communities Initiative. We have submitted a briefing note through our MPs that apparently is going up for budget preparation to share the feedback that you have given us. And we'll just continue to advocate. We've been out meeting with all of the MLAs, and we've been talking with the city as well, just to let them know that the needs are still acute in our community and that support is needed. So know that we're continuing. And if there's something specific that you want us to know, please feel free to shoot me a message and I can add that to our briefing notes, because we're hearing that there are still going to be needs for PPE, for staffing. Some of you have had challenges around volunteers and the changes in operating procedures relating to COVID. So if there's something specific you think it would be helpful for government to know, please feel free to let us know. We did meet just last week with the new parliamentary secretary for not-for-profits in British Columbia, Nikki Sharma, and we gave her the same message as well. So, you know, government is out there listening, and we're just trying to make sure that they get some dollars here to us in Surrey, where the COVID levels are still very high, and for those of you in Langley as well. So our timelines. March 1st, the portal will open, and it will close at noon on Friday, April the 30th. Those applications will move forward for approval by the Board of Directors on the 21st of June. So last year, I think we had the e-transfers out by July. So just to know that if you're looking for summer programming, that's kind of the timeline that we're looking at. Should I pause for questions, or do you want me to just keep going and ask questions at the end? How are you doing?
Good, I'm good.
I would say keep going.
Okay. All right. So some of the how-tos, we've got a few tips. Some of these will be familiar to you, and perhaps others not. We actually adapted some points from a nice article, and we can share the link with you, called Be a Standout, 10 Tips for Writing Successful Grant Proposals. And one of those tips was to keep your project file ready so that when a funding stream comes up, you already have all of the information that you need, and it's fairly well organized, and that can be really useful. I would say in the last week, I've had a lot of phone calls from people who have followed that because they've pulled out their funding file and they've said, okay, let me pitch 3 ideas to you. Tell me which ones you think are going to be the most successful. And so we've been able to say, you know, I don't think that one's really going to fit, but these 2 look really good. And if you do this, you're more likely to be successful. So having that list and kind of being ready to pitch it and knowing what you're looking for will help you find a good fit. As I said earlier, write with the reviewer in mind. We read a lot of applications, and I would say one of the biggest strengths is if you can find someone to review your applications before you submit them, make sure that they're clear, that they're easy to read. That's really gratefully appreciated by and accepted by the reviewers, because it just means that we're much more likely to understand what it was you were trying to communicate. Some of you may have had phone calls with me when we did the first round of ECSF grants, and in that it was rolling grants. They were very simple. We didn't get a lot of information, and we going, well, what do you think they mean by that? Or how do we interpret that? And in that case, we were actually able to pick up the phone, and I'd be calling people in the middle of an adjudication committee meeting and saying, can you tell me more about this? We don't understand. Because it was a short application process. We don't have that opportunity with our standing grant process. It's expected that all of the information is attached and that it's very clear and easy to understand. So don't try to cram in too much. Make it clear, make it simple, make it easy for us to understand. Following the directions, I mean, that may seem self-evident, but we do get applications that are missing things, you know, incomplete, or the wrong things are attached. So please take time. Don't try to wait till the last moment. And if you don't understand, if you start early, then you're able to actually reach out and ask the question or ask for some assistance and some input. We're happy to do that. But if you get to the last 48 hours or even the last week before the deadline, we're not going to have as much time to help you if a lot of calls are coming in. But if you start right away and say, hey, can I ask a question? We're much more likely to be able to help you and have a conversation. So feel free to reach out, and really don't underestimate the time. You know, if you've got someone who can proofread, it's much better to take that time and have an extra day or so that somebody else can take a go at your application before you push send on it. I don't know that we've had any problems with our portal. I think Lynn tells me it's usually been fairly straightforward, but some places, even the ECSF portal, as you get a lot of volume at the last hours, right before the deadline, everyone's trying to submit, and that's a much increased risk that something's going to go wrong. So if you can get it in a little earlier, it's highly recommended. Highlight your strengths, not your needs. You know, I think the adjudicators really appreciate knowing what your strengths are and what it is that you're bringing to the table, especially if you're a new organization that we haven't worked with in the past. Let us know why you're the expert that should be funded for this project. Often we get multiple applications asking to do the same thing. Number 6, involve those you serve in the design of your programs and be clear about how you've done that and how you're involving those individuals throughout the process, including in the evaluation. I can certainly say during the ECSF applications, we did have individuals who said, no, we're not involving those who are served by the project. And that meant that they were automatically disqualified from the ECSF funding. So please fill in those questions. If those questions are there, it's part of the rating criteria. And if you aren't able to answer that, you know, at least put in your plans for what you would anticipate doing throughout the project activities. There is a question about partners in the application. Now, Lynn, I don't know if I can see her, but Lynn tells me that often that box is left blank, even though the project activities seem to infer that there are partnerships happening. So please do talk about the partnerships and the collaboration in your applications. Another good suggestion is reading successful grants or asking for feedback about grants that you've submitted if they weren't successful. Calling up and asking, we'll give you some feedback. It may be, as it's been this year, that we were simply oversubscribed, but we'll be transparent with you about that. For example, the Emergency Community Support Fund, we were well over 7 times oversubscribed, and it was heartbreaking for the adjudicators to make those decisions because they were all worthy applications. And we just didn't have the dollars to go around. But if there's something specific, we'll be happy to let you know. Demonstrate that you've designed the most cost-effective project. So anything you can tell us about how you're doing this in a way that's really saving money and being efficient and effective is really helpful to the adjudicators. We do have finance folks on our committee, and they go straight to the budgets and they'll say, you know, why is that so expensive? And, you know, if we can't answer the question, especially for those of you who are writing applications for digital programming, if you need a more expensive software because of confidentiality or the number of users, don't expect that the adjudicators will know. And if we get to that decision making and it's not been laid out, you know, you probably will lose some points if we can't figure it out on the fly. And be persistent. You know, you may have to try a couple of times and your turn will come, but keep trying and keep reaching out. I would probably say there are examples of times where applications might have been declined and then we found a little bit more money, or another applicant for some reason wasn't able to carry out their project and we went down the list and chose the next person. And we do go back through the files, and, you know, we've just done that recently and said, you know, which was that application? Let's invite them. They'd be really good for this new thing that we're doing. So know that we read those applications, we're looking at them, and we're trying to work in ways that support you. It may not be in this particular application stream, but we certainly are thinking about other ways that we can meet your needs. I think the other thing to be aware is that our granting process that you're going to be applying for, if you're applying to our community funds, come from donors who want to support the community. They've put their funds into endowment so that they can grow over the years, and they're really looking to see the success stories. So just be aware of those generous donors and how they're supporting, because without that support, we wouldn't be able to make grants to you. So we just, you know, ask that you're aware of that. Somebody's thoughtfully put their dollars with SurreyCares. Okay, budgets. You do need to upload a budget. It doesn't have to be complicated. It is helpful if you can be clear, if it's a larger budget, what are the items that the SurreyCare dollars are going to support? If you have a choice and you're not able to receive your full ask, I would strongly recommend that you prioritize your funding requests. So, you know, if you absolutely need a particular item and the second item, but the third item is optional, or you might be able to get it somewhere else, make a note of that. Our grants are always oversubscribed. And so if the committee is looking and they go, well, we've got this amount of money left, but they've asked for this, if we know that you can do something meaningful with a little bit less, that might be the difference between the funds going to you and to another project. So if you can help us understand, that's really helpful. I think I've really touched on all of these points already. I think your evaluation reports are really important. If you need extension for some reason, particularly during COVID, let us know in advance. If you do not submit an evaluation report, you will be ineligible to participate in the next round of funding. So please make sure that your report comes in. We use those reports to help amplify, and I know some of you have been part of our process where we've come out and done a check presentation, or we've done a virtual presentation, so that you have a chance to tell your story about the good work that you're doing. And then we put that out through social media, through our all of our channels. We write blogs. Sometimes we're able to get things in the newspaper. So please help us help you by sharing materials and filling out that evaluation report. If you want to invite us to events, that kind of thing, it's always well appreciated. And we share all those thank yous that you send. I know some of you send great packages. I know Greg has framed thank yous that are up on our walls. So, you know, we do appreciate that. It doesn't have to be anything tangible, but when you send us a summary of what a difference your gift or the gift made to your organization and the people you serve, that's really powerful for our donors. So we like to be able to let them know so that hopefully they'll come back and they'll be excited and they'll support more.